As an architect, you need to be really open-minded. You need to be super curious about things. You know, it's something that I found that it was something I was born naturally inquisitive. You know, as a young child, I took apart small appliances that I wanted to always understand how things kind of worked. And this kind of curiosity is something that drives me and my practice, the way in which I think about materials and assemblies of these materials, but to try to find a kind of poetic resolution that occurs through the act of the materials themselves.
When I think of Studio Dark, the firm's work, I think of a meticulous nature in detailing. Form follows function in the truest sense of these forms, and the old school nature of how these tools were made and how they're used. But a lot of that sort of old school thinking comes out in the way he details things.
If you look around Pittsburgh, there aren't all that many interesting projects that mix old and new architectures. Sometimes the new is too, quote-unquote, respectful of the old, and sometimes the old isn't saved in time to let it continue on into our era.
What I looked for was how can one start to find kind of spatial clarity in the existing work, which always had a kind of strong material property to them, because that's why they kind of last so long as they do. They last so long because, in fact, they were made out of real things and real materials. So to me, like adaptive reuse, and here at the Thorne Residence, working with the existing silo and the existing barn on this once working farm was an important thing to kind of talk about the memory of place, but then also talk about how one might live in relationship to the historic landscape here in Sewickley Heights and integrate these structures as part of the kind of living environment.
It is an elevated experience because this is not a cookie cutter house. Everything here has been carefully considered by a master craftsman architect. That means the big things, the little things, everything. So every direction that you look, there's something that is kind of perfect. And it's an experience to live around perfection like that, and it elevates your life. It's like fine dining. It's like great music. It's inspiring. So you live your life a little better, you do a better job with your work maybe. Everything about what you're doing is a little more considered because you have that type of thinking all around you. And it is a different experience.
It's working with topography, so it's both respectful of where it finds itself, but it's also augmenting the natural world.
Meticulous, very meticulous in the care and craft when materials come together, how they meet, how they're joined, the texture of that material, the precision of how those materials are executed.
Every time was an inspiring event because Gerard has ideas all the time. He is not only a master craftsman architect, but he's an artist. He's a genius, always has another idea. And they're great. And so we love every 2 weeks, we just get our socks knocked off by another great thing we could do here. For us, it was just inspiration, and we loved it.
To me, when looking at the body of the work of Studio Dark over the past 30 years, I hope you see it as an evolution of work. And I hope you see a kind of material consistency, a kind of curiosity from one project to another, that you really see the work as a kind of thematic whole and not as a kind of singular act. architecture is a built reality full of ideas, but understanding how to synthesize those ideas takes a real learning process. It doesn't happen immediately, and it takes kind of a lifetime to start to master it. So if you can find a way to kind of shortcut that, the best way to do that is to start to ask the question, why is something the way it is, right?